Okay. Uh, well, hello everybody, whoever had patience to wait for me, thanks. We are running just about 1 hour late. Not my fault. Anyway, my name is Ružica Nikolić. I am currently employed at University of Žilina in northern Slovakia. Originally, I did my education in Serbia and continued with gym at Harvard. This presentation is going to be semi-personal, not completely, because it's about Jim, not about me. Only a few introductory remarks. I met Jim first in 1983. I got an IREX grant exchange between, at that time, Yugoslavia and United States, and I was visiting fellow for a year. Then I applied and got a scholarship for PhD studies. So my first impression and meeting was in his room at Harvard, at Pierce Hall, and he said, "Hi, I'm Jim Rice." And for me, that was a little bit too much, because coming from communist Yugoslavia and educated formally, so it was good day, Mr. Professor, and so forth and so on. But I had to learn to, communicate casually. Renata, his wife, joined a bit later on that meeting, so I met them both at that time. Anyway, I continued calling him Professor Rice the whole time I was in States for about 6 years. And I managed to finally call him Jim since 2011, when we were in Pasadena for his 70th birthday celebration. Okay, as I said, this is not about me. Just one small excerpts from Jim's CV to tell you who he really is. So, born in 1940, and that's what we celebrate this year. College degree in 62, master's degree in 63, PhD in 64, all at Lehigh University. And Professor Hutchinson from Harvard said so, and Jim agreed, that actually they gave him PhD to kick him out from Lehigh. And Jim also said that his master's thesis was better than his PhD. So we have to take his word for that. He knows the best. Why was he making trouble? Because, students at the beginning of each class gets the homework assignment which is due within a week or two. The problem was that Jim, when the class ended within an hour or two, Jim was handing in already finished homeworks. So they were a little bit discouraging for the rest of the students. Anyway, he was teaching, as that is at Harvard curriculum at that time, that professor is teaching what is his specialty at graduate courses. So that would be for Jim at that time, fracture mechanics, later geophysics. And when I came in 83, he was teaching thermodynamics of all the courses. And it was interesting for me. It was new, because I was already an assistant professor at home, that students can interrupt during the lecture. So he would patiently answer all the questions, explaining some things 2 or 3 times. But once somebody asked about some equation, one of the first laws of thermodynamics, and Jim just turned around and sharply said, "Well, young man, that was in mandatory reading for this class," and continued to lecture again. So, this is an interesting point. He knew exactly how to manage students. Jim's main characteristic, as I think, is as a genius, so that he can, compact everything in a single sentence. For instance, when we wrote our first article, common article, I wrote text in handwriting on some 19 pages, and handed in. And he said, "Oh, this is very good and very bad." One sentence, not even complete. And I said, "Excuse me, can you please elaborate on that?" And he said, "Well, this is very good for you and me because we know what is this all about, and very bad for the rest of the people who will be unfortunate to read this. So, you have to have all this explained from the beginning to the end, what you did, why you did, how you did." Another point is that Jim was always paying attention to all of his students. For me, for instance, when I got scholarship, switching from visiting fellow to PhD student, he asked me, because he knew that I won't be able to be alone. I was already married for 3, 4, whatever years. So he asked me what your husband is doing. And I said, well, he's finishing a PhD in automatic control and robotics. And Jim said, oh, perfect. He can come and work with Professor Brockett at Harvard Robotics Lab. So that's how my husband ended up studying and actually lecturing at Harvard. Another thing is Jim was almost every year going for 3 months, 6 months, half a year as to sabbatical to Caltech. So one year he was somewhere in February, he had a plan to leave for Caltech in September for the beginning of the new school year. And he made a plan that for those, I don't know, 6 months from February till September, 5 months, 2 to 7 is 7 months, he decided to write 6 articles. The problem is he didn't write those 6 articles, he wrote 8. Another point of teaching is that, as you probably all know, Jim is not trying to be very smart in dressing, and it was kind of problem for him, once when he got a honorary degree from one university, one of the universities, he had to put all the gown on, and it was the biggest problem. Well, he had a tie on only for the first lecture in semester. And then that tie was happily hung on a hanger, and he was going to classes dressed casually. As I said, genius. We had a problem for one of the articles to use complex variables and needed conformal mapping from a parallelogram to a circle. So Jim comes on Monday and said, okay, this is what I did 2 hours on Sunday afternoon, and brought me like something between 2 and 3 pages of equations. Well, I needed 2 or 3 pages from one line to another. And that's not that he just wrote all the main lines. He had all that in his mind. So it took me like 20 pages to go through all the equations. And of course, no mistakes from his side. When he needed some finite element calculations, and at that time, that was late 80s, the newly released finite element program was Abacus. And Jim was not very happy about the official explanations, the official manual, so he sat down, learned all about it, and ended up giving a course at Harvard on Abacus. What else? Yeah, some personal points. Okay, everybody will start laughing now. I had a very special relationship with Renata, Jim's wife. She's Polish, and she does statistics in geophysics, and she's editor-in-chief of the most famous journal in geophysics. Anyway, when I wrote my letter to introduce myself to Jim to accept me for that scholarship, at the beginning I said, well, at the end, about my knowledge of English, you can get the impression from this letter. And Renata later told me, when I was already there, that was almost the point that I was not accepted, because there was some fellow who came and somebody else wrote a letter for him. So when he came to Harvard, he couldn't speak a single word of English. And when she was explaining to him that he can write a letter for his family, and if somebody is flying back home to his homeland and can take that letter, Renata had to fly like a plane to explain to him that, he can write a letter and send it. So don't write, my English is good, you can see from the letter, if you are going to write something to Jim. Another point is that we went for lunches like once a month around with Jim and with Renata or both. And Renata loved a lot in a Greek restaurant, lemon soup. So we would go there sort of often. And you know how Greeks love their neighbors. So, because in Serbia, the homemade coffee, home coffee is called Turkish coffee. So I come to a Greek restaurant and I order a Turkish coffee. I was almost kicked out. The waiter was yelling, "This is not Greek. There is no such a thing as Turkish coffee. This is Greek coffee," and so forth and so on. So I hope that I didn't bother you too long. One thing is also funny. Jim wrote under quotation mark a book that he cannot read. In the 80s, Russians collected some of his works and translated and printed, published as Jim Rice's book in fracture mechanics in Russian language. So Jim wrote a book that he couldn't read. That would be, I guess, all. Jim was also always behaving calmly, never raising his voice. Once I heard about an event, I was not present, that he was yelling at the dean or head of the department because he was asked to prepare the program for the curriculum in mechanics. And studiously doing everything, he did this very nicely and handed into at a meeting. And then there were so many remarks and everything that he finally, went through the roof and said, "Okay, I lost time from my research and from my teaching and everything to write this program, and you are not satisfied with it. Why the hell did you ask me to do that?" Well, they say that it was at the meeting and all the doors were closed, but everybody could hear him. I didn't. That's just, urban legend. So, as I said, Jim is a genius, but as every genius, he has flaws. And there is one thing Jim Rice could never learn. Okay, what? To pronounce my name. When I introduced myself to him, I said, "Well, my name is Ružica," which is in Serbian language diminutive from rose, Ruža, which means actually my name is like a little rose, and I don't feel like that. And of course, it was laughing, but Jim could never pronounce Ružica. I was Ružica, and that's it. Martin, Renata's son, was explaining to him, "Jim, this is like pizza, Ružica." No way. So you see, he is not that perfect. Almost, but 7, 8, 9, 99% of that, but he cannot pronounce my name. And this is, of course, we were always joking about that. Anyway, I was talked to Renata, sent email to Renata today to check whether she will and Jim join us. Unfortunately, they had some emergency at the home with problem with heating, and on the East Coast it's very warm at this time of the year, and tomorrow is Thanksgiving, so they have to repair that heating ASAP, otherwise it will be nice, and that's why they couldn't appear at this meeting, which is actually dedicated to Jim. So happy birthday to Jim, and happy Thanksgiving to you and Renata, your family, and God bless you all. Thank you.